Monova, back home and excited to talk about this topic that I keep hearing so much. And I finally figured out how to explain also my experience of how I overcame it and how I'm overcoming still in some aspects. And I want to talk about the topic of suffering, emotional suffering, not the physical one, right? So the usual pattern or the usual belief that my clients a lot of the time present is the pattern of I need to be suffering in order to be successful, in order to be feeling happy, in order to feel um, love, right? So this is like the I think I would say classic almost example of whenever we start dissecting certain thought patterns, we come down to this belief that says, I need to be suffering in order to create the success I want, in order to feel happy, therefore having that success or having a love afterwards. And I really want to show you how I have overcome some of it and how I'm still overcoming the other ones. And I also want to show you the consequences of thinking this way or believing this way, right? So I think I took this pattern of I need to be suffering in order to feel success, love from my mom, because as I was growing up, my mom had this, according to how I observed, obviously, right? It's not like I interviewed my mom, but this is how I have observed my mom doing. My mom used to do so much work in the household outside of taking care of four children and taking care of a sick mother of my father. She would do lots of other work, and then she would be like expecting my father praise and love her for all the things she did, right? In other words, her model was, her way of thinking pattern was that I can only be loved and praised and being the good wife in quotes if I do all of these things. If I don't do all of these things, then I'm not the person that he wants, basically, right? So, in other words, the all of this suffering is necessary for me then feeling love and earning love, and that's I think how I took it from my mom, uh, believing that love needs to be earned, right? And love needs to be earned by doing things instead of being loved for who I am. Over the years, obviously, I have cleared out that, and that I feel so amazing that I no longer want to be loved for suffering or for doing lots of things for someone else, but rather I want to be loved for who I am as I am, right? So that part is good. But what I notice that keeps happening or I keep noticing it is this pattern still come up even to this date is my brain offering I need to be suffering in order to be successful. And that I think is something that I still am in the process. And this is what I have figured out so far. So when I believe that I need to be suffering in order to be successful, I actually generate this need to create suffering. And I was like so blown away. I was like, I couldn't believe this. I can't believe that I'm actually creating suffering because for me, subconsciously, right, suffering equals happiness, meaning suffering equals success, whatever that means for my brain, right? Which then equals happiness. Right? So, in other words, what my brain is really doing the trick is my brain is saying that we can't cook risotto. Obviously, we can't cook risotto without the particular rice, right? The same as my brain is saying, we can't cook happiness, we can't cook success without the suffering, right? Suffering being the particular rice. Now, what I'm doing then, I realized, is that not only that I'm creating, so I'm like creating this need to feel the suffering, And therefore, what I'm doing is I'm actually, whatever I'm doing to get to that success, whatever that means for me, right? So, success could be financial, success could be recognition, success could be a certain level of growth, whatever it is. In order to get there, whatever the thing that I'm doing, I'm every time expecting, as soon as I feel like I'm suffering, expecting, oh, that means now happiness will come. That means now I will be feeling happy afterwards. It's, and therefore I'm going through this process of getting to somewhere. I'm always like forcing myself to go through the suffering bridge in order to get to happiness, right? And therefore, obviously, in the end, everything becomes so difficult to achieve. I like every activity that I do, I start doing it in a way that, like, my brain almost wanting me to expect that suffering to happen, like the feeling of hurt, certain other feelings. And we'll be talking about what suffering is in a minute. But I'm doing everything with the lens of keep expecting, okay, if I suffer, then I will feel happy. If I suffer, then I will feel happy because they are equal in my subconscious brain. And therefore, the result is everything becomes so difficult to achieve. Now, my dears, obviously, I want to advocate here that that's not the only way we can achieve success. And I will tell you in a moment as well my solution that I have found for myself that works so well and beautifully. But I really want you to like observe within you, what do you mean when you feel like you are suffering emotionally? And here is what I have found for myself, right? So this is my experience. I thought, okay, what is suffering actually? Like emotional suffering, what is that? Right? And I have realized for myself that this is an impact of an emotion, an impact of a disappointment, of frustration, of whatever other emotions that I consider negative, impact of that one or several emotions negatively that I think I feel as suffering, right? So layers of those emotions, or maybe even it can be one emotion, excuse me, impact of that is for me suffering. Now, when I think about, okay, suffering means feeling feeling hurt, feeling disappointed, feeling frustrated, and therefore feeling this suffering, right? When I think that this is suffering, then I question, okay, why do I need that suffering in order to achieve success? Or in order to achieve whatever the goal I'm wanting to achieve, basically. Why do I need that particular thing in order to achieve it? Then when I question it, my brain says, well, there is no other way. This is the only road to success. So, in other words, frustration, disappointment, all of this are the only way to success. Now, then I question, okay, it may be true that there will be certain times frustrations, certain times disappointment, and there might be other emotions that come along in on the road to um, success, right? We will be failing and we'll be frustrated about it and all of these things, and that may be true. But why the suffering part, right? Why the suffering part? Meaning that why stay in the impact of those emotions so much, or why stay in the effect of those emotions of disappointment so much instead of processing through as fast as we allow ourselves and then going to try the next things. In other words, why indulge in that suffering? Why stay so much in that confusion, in that overwhelm, in that um, like hurt feelings so much and being affected by them so much and keep expecting that means now we will experience um, happiness, right? At least this is my experience. So, and I noticed that the only reason why that might be happening is because my brain is so tuned to equal, like, equalize, is that the word? To bring to suffering means happiness, and therefore my brain wants me to like keep creating these scenarios where I actually feel the suffering from all of these emotions. I don't really process those emotions, right? But I just keep feeling like under the effect of them, as if like they're invading me. They are like taking over my body or taking over me, and therefore I just feel like powerless and I just keep suffering. And secretly my brain also keeps feeling like, oh, that means now we're going to be happy, we're going to feel that happiness. And therefore I just go through something very like in struggling way, in such emotionally draining or powerless way, because my brain secretly thinks that's the answer to happiness. And therefore I remember a lot of the times back in the day when I used to work for an employer, I used to stay like late nights. I used to do a lot of things. Sometimes I would even question whether I should be doing all of this, or it makes sense to do all of this, but I would be doing it because I really kept wanting to put myself under suffering, under the influence of these emotions, and feeling like, okay, if I'm feeling all of these emotions and suffering, that means I'm going to be happy, right? And then I would go home and feeling happy because of all the like savior or heroic things that I have done, even though that wasn't the case. But my brain interpreted as, you see, you have suffered enough, you have uh, tortured yourself enough, right? So these are, of course, extreme words. Now you're allowed to feel happiness. And that is what I really want you all, if you allow me, I want to offer to you to change that pattern of thinking, pattern of belief that says, I need to suffer in order to achieve success. I need to suffer in order to achieve happiness. And as long as we keep conditioning ourselves that suffering equals to happiness, or suffering equals to whatever else the feeling that we want to have, let's challenge if the suffering is the only road to those feelings, or those feelings can be generated in any other way, right? Can we have those feelings of happiness, have those feelings of pride, have those feelings of fulfillment without the suffering? Can we do that? And I have found the answer that yes, we can absolutely, totally do that. And actually, that's a lot better way of living life than keep putting ourselves in the position of suffering, in the position of feeling powerless, in the position of, oh my God, poor me. Instead of doing that, like difficult, muddy, gluey road, the way it feels like, instead, I'm suggesting to you to build another road, another bridge to go to those feelings of happiness and to go to those feelings of fulfillment. And the way that I want you to think about to change is by thinking about, I need to feel trust to create happiness, to create success. This has been one of the changer for me. And as soon as I think about, oh, the trust is the bridge to happiness, to fulfillment, then all the things that I do to get to that success, to get to that happiness, all the things that I do, I always do it with trust instead of with suffering. Right? So the way that it then sounds is like all the things that I will be doing always from trusting place of, this is exactly what I want to be doing, or I need to be doing. This is not what I want to be doing. This is what want to focus on. This is not what I want to focus on. And I have a very clear way of doing exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it to get to my goal, right? Or to get to my success, whatever it is. And I always have this then cleaner space, or the clearer space, more trusting, more peaceful, grounded place or the bridge to go through to get to my success. And to make things even further interesting, of course, you can also untie feeling happy because of successes as well, meaning that you can also like decide, I want to feel happy in this moment for this, for being me, for doing these things without like expecting success to arrive there for you, then feel happy. That's a topic for another conversation, but I'm just saying that road to happiness or road to success does not need to go through suffering. It can also go through trust. And as long as I feel we have this belief that we can only be successful if we suffer, then we will be doing everything to create that suffering feeling of whatever the way it feels like, right? It will always be like every time feeling like, okay, I need to suffer so I can feel happy. I need to suffer, I can feel happy. You will be always conditioning those two, and that conditioning will always lead you to feeling like this is going to be so hard, so complicated, so unbearable, or so torturous, so overwhelming, whatever it is. And then what is weird, like not only that's weird that we keep creating our conditions for suffering, but also we then lose the motivation to keep going because now we feel so suffering and we don't want to put ourselves in the situation anymore. And then we start avoiding things. We start avoiding going to those things to make those things happen. And therefore, we're just like staying in our hurt feelings of disappointment, hurt feelings of frustration, of things not going the way we want to. And then we just give up at certain point, and we continue suffering even from giving up because now we don't really experience any of those high emotions like the happiness and whatever else because we gave up. Now we're even like suffering from all the other emotions that come up after giving, right? So that's why I thought that we really need to go back to this origin of the belief that we, many of us may hold, that we may have inherited or took over from other adults as we were growing up, or maybe you thought the observation of your life were like this. Whatever the case is, now you can actually make the change to the thought of, I need to be feeling trust in order to feel happiness, feel success, feel love, or whatever else that we want to feel. Now, as I said, we can also feel those emotions without creating any um, roads to like any roads of suffering or any roads of trust. We can also feel immediately or intentionally those feelings. But for some of us, it comes very difficult to do that. And therefore, if you're someone who's so used to feeling like suffering is the only road to success, then I offer you to change your mindset to, I need to be creating trust in order to create success, and then always keep generating this trust of, how does it feel to feel the trust? How does it feel to be doing all of these things from trust that I'm the person who can do this, that I have the abilities to do this, and then keep doing it from that trust and not overworking, not overwhelming yourself, but just keep doing it from trust and trusting that the success will come from all of these activities that you're doing. Then the success start coming in. And that's why my goal is, don't create suffering that is unnecessary. Life is filled with suffering already in terms of lots of circumstances around us, injustices, wars, and so many other things that we witness as humanitarians on daily basis, right? So therefore, if we can spare ourselves the suffering that we create without really noticing, and that creation of suffering really coming from that belief that I need to be suffering to feel happy, to feel love, or to feel success, or to be feel successful, right? And that pattern we need to change. And I invite you to come coach with me so we can start challenging that thought pattern and all the consequences around it, and then shift it to trust and replace it with trust. That will help you go so much longer to pursue what you want to, so much faster to process all the emotions that come on the way to pursuing our goals or what we want, right? And therefore also having the journey as pleasant as getting to the result. But even if it's not pleasant, you will not allow yourself to be suffering a lot under it, but rather you know what to do and how to go through this without keep generating that suffering that keep then creating more suffering, and that vicious cycle will continue existing until you break it. So that's why, my dears, come coach with me. I have so much experience in overcoming this, and I have still been doing some work around it. I'm coaching my clients around it, and I would love to coach you to change that pattern. Have an amazing week, and I will speak to you very soon.